Hey there, everybody. Robert Taylor with Wonderscape Creations. Continuing on with our crafting system. So, we're going to go ahead and get started. This episode is going to be focusing on getting the data structures ready because there's a lot of moving information and we need to make sure we keep it structured and under control. Something I had failed to point out in the last episode was how I have categories and subcategories. All that stuff is modularly added, and in order to do that, we need to control that flow. So that requires us to create quite a few bits of data before we can actually get into the component itself. So let's go ahead first and create a new folder wherever you're going to hold this system. I'm holding it in Wonderscape Creations, Systems, and it will now be called Crafting. I'm going to open it up. The next thing that I'm going to do is first create a blueprint. And I'm going to search for narrative item. I don't need the space there. There we go. And we're going to name this BP underscore material underscore data underscore master. And because it's me, WC for Wonderscape Creations. So we need this because obviously we're going to have a material or multiple materials that are needed to craft an item, whether it be a bandage, a sword, or some epic piece of armor. And we want to be able to control what can go through the crafting system. So we're using this as a base. We can create any narrative item in the system, but we want to make sure that only materials go through the material side of things to confirm that it can be made. That's at least how it is for now. Uh, in future updates, if we decide that we actually want it to be anything, then we'll certainly change it then. Because we may decide, I really hope we don't, but we may decide that we need a potion as an ingredient when we're creating a piece of armor that gives us a health over time regenerative state. I don't think we're gonna go down that road, but if that's a route that you're wanting to go down, then you're not going to want to use this specifically. When we are setting up for the material itself, you are going to want to set up for narrative item. It'll also make a few things that you're trying to do a little more difficult, but still doable. Now that we've created this item, that, by the way, needs absolutely nothing changed from what I can see. Nope, everything has stayed the same. So we won't make any changes to this blueprint. We will now go on to a series of structs and a data asset that we need. And we're going to be going in the order of creation instead of doing all the structs right away, because one of the structs requires the data asset. So first we'll create a new folder and there we go. Name it structs for structures. And just in case you haven't followed along in other episodes and you don't know where a structure is at, if you come to Blueprint, you'll see structure. I'm going to call it S for structure, crafting requirements underscore WC. So when we open this up, the first thing we're going to want is material. And we're going to come in here and search for our material data master WC. Oops. We want it to be a class reference, and we're having this be a hard reference. So I'm specifying hard reference now because this is going to be the only hard reference that we actually have. Everything else is going to be soft reference, so we're going to asynchronously load it. I was running into an issue with keeping the array of materials with their quantity that we are making right now, to where it wasn't keeping both of these in line once it loaded. Um, I verified it with a couple of people that it's not necessarily a known issue, but it is known and there isn't an actual fix around it. So you would need a specialized function that would wait for all of the data before uh, going on to the next part of your man-made loop, essentially. All loops are man-made. Your made loop. Anyways, but that's not the only reason that I decided to have it hard referenced, because every single time we access the soft reference that will have an array of materials, we are checking those materials every single time. So we might as well have them loaded right away. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. So you need to make sure in the craft requirement structure that you have material hard referenced, the material data master hard referenced, and the quantity right here. The next thing we need to do, and this is for the save system, we need to mark both of these as save game. Excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and save that there. The next thing we want to do is we're going to jump out of here real quick, and we're going to create a folder for data assets. You know what? I'm going to change this to recipes, because that's where our recipes are going to go. And instead, I'll now create one for data assets, because down the road we may have more than one type. We'll come in here, blueprint class, all classes, data asset. You'll want primary data asset. We're going to call this BP underscore recipe data asset WC. We will open this up. Excuse me. Now then, for now, all we are going to be doing in here is creating two variables. I'm going to open this up, and we will call this one the crafting requirements. And then for this, we will look for our S crafting requirements. We're going to make this an array. Then after that, we need to hit this plus sign and call this crafted item. And this will be of type narrative item. But it's going to be a soft class reference. We just want one of them. And I believe that is all we need to do for now. We will eventually need to add an, what's the word we're looking for? We will eventually need to add, an interface. There we go. But until then, we will just leave that as is for now. So this is what holds our, the, what's the word I'm looking for? The interface that we just, not the interface. It's been one of those weeks, ladies and gentlemen. This struct, where this hard reference is. And because we may not necessarily need the crafted item right away, because if you can't craft it, we don't need this loaded into memory. That's why this is set to a soft reference. Button style. Why does it say button style? Oh, whoops. Glad I looked. Narrative item. This one. Soft reference. There we go. Compile and save. So now that we've got those made, let's go back to our struct folder. That's what we needed next. Let me close out my notes here. The next thing we need to make is another struct, obviously, because we're in the structure folder. We're going to call this S underscore crafting discovery requirements underscore WC. Now, there's a reason that we are putting this in its own separate struct and not putting it in the data asset specifically. And I will explain that as soon as we get everything made here. So this first one stays a bool, and we go with is discovered. And then the next one, we'll hit a variable, add variable, and we'll name this one required research points. We'll come in here and make this an integer. Oh, I don't know why I was typing for it when it's right here. Obviously, so we don't forget, mark these as save game. That way when narrative save system saves it, it'll save all the information for us. So the reason we have to have this in a structure and not in the data asset itself. Known bug, to our frustration. When you are testing out the system in runtime and you hit the button that unlocks the system, this recipe for us in a data asset, it marks it as true. And when you end the play session where you're testing it, it keeps it as true. For some reason, when you're testing things at runtime and you make the change to the data asset at runtime and it's a Boolean, I don't know if it does it for other variables, but specifically if it's a Boolean, it keeps it saved, which means it automatically made it true and kept it at true at every future playtest. Obviously, we could always, at end of runtime, it automatically takes it to false, but then we run into the issues of, future, when somebody saves and then loads in the new game, we would need to create additional code to save that true so that we can load it as true. And that was just a lot of extra work. It was easier just to create the struct. So that's what we did here. Now we need another struct. This one we will name recipe. We will open that up. And in this one, we first look for crafting discovery requirements. We'll name this discovery requirements. And then we'll come here and crafting cost. So money-wise, how much is it going to cost? That way, if you want money, you can have it. In our game, we're going to make it to where if you're crafting it yourself through the UI, then it costs nothing. But if you go to a crafter out in the world or a crafting bench, we haven't decided which yet, then it will cost you to craft, but it'll make the item a little better. So instead of having 5 armor, it would have 7 armor, things like that. That way, players have freedom of choice, and those that choose to run all the way back to town or teleport back to town and then run up all the way back to where you were, you get a little bit of a reward for doing it the slower way. For those that like to min-max. The last thing we need is the actual recipe. So we're going to add one more variable. And this can be of type BP recipe. Did I name it differently? One second, because it's this data asset. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Can't have that for you guys. There we go. BP recipe data asset, and we want to soft reference the recipe. Sometimes we just want to see if it can be crafted. If it can, then we can load this in. If we don't have enough money, then we can't. If we do, then we can. See where we're going with this? Obviously, we need to do here what we've been doing with the other structs. We need to mark these as save. Very, very important that we do that. All right. So, two more structs to do. And these ones are not strictly necessary if you aren't wanting them. These are allowing us to separate them into categories and subcategories. So a category can be, we're going with weaponsmithing and armor and smithing instead of just blacksmithing. So we'll say that the category is weaponsmithing, and then the subcategory is one-handed axes. Then you'll have a list of all your axes. You can always go with a third category, like a subcategory if you wanted to. I didn't want to. We're at 2 right now. In the future, if we have to go to 3, then I'll adapt it then. But for now, this is all we need. So let's go ahead and create that struct. Those structs. The first one we will call S underscore crafting sub category WC. We're going to open it up. The first line will be of text, and it needs to be text. And it needs to be text because a localizable text string. So if you're making a game that allows you, and you do the localization so it comes in multiple languages, you want this as some things that will be changed in multiple languages to text. So we're changing it to text. We're going to name this subcategory name. And then this next one will be an array of S recipes. Or recipe. Make that an array here. We'll name this recipes. And of course, save game. Save. And lastly, we need one more struct. This one will be crafting category underscore WC instead of subcategory. At which point we will open this up. This will be a text. We will name it category name. I do that for subcategory. Yeah. And then we will add a variable. We'll call it subcategories. And we're going to look for S crafting subcategories. Turn this into an array. And make sure we mark them as save game. All right, structurally, that's all we need to do. So before we end this episode, we'll go ahead and create the component. So let's go ahead and blueprint class and look for actor component. We're going to name this AC underscore crafting underscore WC. We'll open this bad boy up, and immediately we're going to add our variable that is called crafting categories. We'll make this an array. We're going to go ahead and make sure we mark this as save game so we don't forget. And we want crafting category underscore WC. Compile and save. This way, let's make this easier for you guys to see actually. There we go. Made everything bigger. When we create a category, we'll first get to name the category, and then we can have as many subcategories as we want. We name the subcategory, and then we add as many recipes as we want. And within the recipe, we check if it's already discovered, because your game may want to have some that are just automatically discovered at the beginning. If not, how many research points does it cost? How much does it cost to craft? And the recipe itself. And then within the recipe, obviously, you would have the last few bits of information. So that sets us up for the next episode where we're going to create all of the code that is within the component itself, along with where it is stored. There's a few lines of code that we unfortunately have to do in in wherever you place this code, and that's fine. So we'll go ahead and do that in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching.